Our next speaker is Sid Smith. He is Government Affairs Manager with the American Exploration and Mining Association in Spokane Valley, Washington. He joined the Government Affairs role after almost 17 years working in the United States Senate, and he's going to speak about allow me to reintroduce myself, mining returns to DC's agenda.
Thank you. I'm going to try to keep the water away from the technology here. All right. Well, I forgot to put this in my presentation today, but for those of you who may or may not know, today is the 150th anniversary of the passage of the 1872 mining law. So just a little bit of trivia there. Thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to be here with all of you as we take a look at the return of the hard rock mining industry to DC's agenda. My name is Sid Smith, as the man said. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for the American Exploration and Mining Association. We are based in Spokane, Washington, and for those of you who might be familiar, we used to be known as the Northwest Mining Association. About 20 years ago or so, we started to find that we were starting to have a little bit of a hard time getting meetings with some folks who are back located on the East Coast, particularly members of Congress. They would ask, why do we need to meet with someone from the Northwest? And as you can see on the map there, we were really trying to emphasize to them that our membership really spans the entire country. And so the running joke started to become that we were everywhere northwest of Puerto Rico. And so at that time we started to think, well, maybe we need to kind of rebrand a little bit. So about 10 years ago or so, we changed our name to what we're commonly referred to now as AEMA. We are based in Spokane Valley, Washington, and we've been around actually since 1895. We really have the full membership, the full spectrum of the mining life cycle within our membership, from exploration and development to reclamation and closure. Some of you might know also the National Mining Association. Their membership kind of tends to include about half hard rock and half coal. Something that differentiates AEMA from them is that we are solely hard rock within our membership. And our membership really spans from the biggest to the smallest, but the hard rock and the development sector is really the heart and soul of our membership. In fact, 80% of our members are either small businesses or are employed by small businesses. So we, have always really been active in DC, building relationships and working our issues, playing defense as needed at times. But this is right now a quick snapshot of our issues that we're working on. Really, defending the mining law never goes away from our priority list. For those who are not engaged in the industry, there's really a lack of familiarity with the mining law. It's foundational, as you all know. But we have to do a lot of public outreach and education on that issue. Educate folks that it's really a land tenure law. It's not an environmental law. There's really a misperception there. So we're constantly working on that to educate there. We talk a lot to folks about the value of self-initiation and claims versus leasing, the differences between hard rock and coal. There's a lot of a thought process that, well, it's all mining, right? So there should be, a lot of similarities. There's some similarities, of course, as you know, but but there's a lot of differences, and not all mining is the same. That's a tagline that we frequently fall back to. We, of course, have a lot of conversations about royalties and why they are appropriate as they're structured for industries like coal, oil, and gas. We are not opposed to a royalty structure, but we have to get it right if we're going to do it for the hard rock industry. We certainly work and engage a lot on public lands issues, maintaining access for you all to get out on public lands and do what you do. And of course, Endangered Species Act issues as those impact public lands. And of course, Good SAM and AML, abandoned mine land issues. We actually got a bill introduced this year as the first bipartisan Good Samaritan bill in more than a decade that we've been able to introduce to help Good Samaritans get in and start doing some reclamation, restoration, really without facing some of the liability issues that could saddle and prevent some restoration work to be done. We're also active on Clean Water Act, WOTUS, and NEPA issues as well. And then, of course, the big one that we're going to be working on this year and for probably the rest of the year and maybe a little further out is the Interagency Working Group on mining that the administration has just kicked off. And so, you know, as important as mining is to all of us, of course, here in the room, back in Washington, D.C., mining, unfortunately, is a bit of a niche issue. And but in the last couple of years, there's been a little bit of a ground shift back there that has helped us emphasize the importance of mining to the economy. A couple of really, actually three, not a couple, but events have really helped us underscore that. The pandemic, of course, the war in Ukraine over the last few months, and the Biden inauguration and the focus that they have put on climate change and the renewable technologies that go along with counteracting that. The common thread with all of those is the emphasis that that disruption to supply chains there. Not to say that Biden's inauguration disrupted supply chains, but really, you know, the shift to renewables and those technologies that are going to be needed for that. We've had to really re-examine the supply chains that are going to be inherent there. We have to look at the minerals that are needed for those, and you know, over the last 2 years, you know, supply chains are top of mind. So, you know, as those issues, the supply chain issues have come to the forefront, we've had a lot of conversations on the Hill and at the agencies, and over the years, we've really understood that there are some members in Congress who are happy to work with us, and you know, they really understand our issues, and they engage. On the other side, there are a number of members who are hostile to our issues, and you know, that's just the kind of the way things go. Really, the larger body in the middle are the folks who are kind of indifferent, whether they have mining in their district or not. They just aren't interested. It's not something that they really see as worth their time to invest the effort. And you know, with these kind of this perfect storm of the last couple years of these three issues, we've really started to see an engagement from that big middle, and even some of those folks on the other side who have previously been a little bit hostile to us. So, so that's given us a little bit of an opening, a little bit of daylight to engage, and we've been gladly pointing out that the minerals, you know, minerals are at the top of the supply chain. We all know that here, right? The message that we've been taking is, you know, would you rather have minerals produced here in the United States, where we know how and where they're produced. They're produced responsibly here. We know the standards. They're ethically, responsibly, transparently produced. We have accountability here. We do it better here than anywhere else in the world, right? We know that, but we can't really say that once we source the minerals somewhere else, overseas, perhaps. So after Biden was sworn in, some of the first actions he put into place put fighting climate change at the top of the list, and the technologies that come with that. Electric vehicles, renewables, were in implementing those, were at the top of the agenda. He put, one of the first executive orders he signed in the first week, put a focus on deployment of certain technologies that are very mineral intensive. We know that again. But this kind of focus put climate change, at the top. It helped us break through to members of Congress who weren't really interested in talking with us. Our friends understood that you need minerals to take solar panels and make solar panels and wind turbines and grid scale batteries that make those feasible to integrate into the power grid. But, we've been using infographics like this for years to kind of deliver that message. But suddenly, you had a whole host of other messengers delivering that message in DC as well. And so there's an adage in public relations and marketing it's kind of, they call it the rule of 7. And so, an audience has to hear your message 7 times before it really starts to sink in. And so we're kind of starting to see that threshold of hitting the rule of 7. And people in DC are getting that rule of 7, that message that if you want some of this stuff, these great shiny technologies, these electric vehicles, the Teslas, the wind turbines, and cell phones, and all these sorts of things, that you're going to have to mine a whole lot more minerals than we do today in the United States and worldwide. And so the importance of mining is really starting to hit the forefront. If you want, it's going to take 6 times more minerals to produce electric vehicles than it does a conventional car. It's going to take 9 times more minerals to produce a wind turbine, a wind farm, than a power plant, a gas-fired power plant. International Energy Agency has been invaluable in delivering some of these points. Since 2010, the average amount of minerals needed for a new unit of power generation has increased by 50% as we integrate renewables into the grid. Folks who really are, have climate change at the top of their priority list typically have not had mining as one of their top friends. So they find themselves in a bit of a quandary, frankly. Let's just be honest. So, having said all that, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's all been sunshine and lollipops for us, for the mining industry in DC. If you read the newspapers of the trade industry publications, you understand that. It's one step forward and one step back. But that's to kind of put it all into context. We can go back 2 years and kind of revisit late 2020, right after President Biden had, or as he's about to enter the White House, and he's assembling his team of his cabinet team and his appointees that he's going to put into place. A lot of the people that we can review, you know, the people he's putting in there. A lot of those folks had made positive overtures, you know, and Biden had on the campaign trail toward the mining industry, actually, you know, showing that they had a little bit of understanding about the place of mining in the industry. Now, some of the folks that he put in place actually, you know, showed, you know, they were the keep it in the ground crowd. There's the pragmatists within the administration. There's the preservationists. So that battle was going to be apparent. It was apparent at that time. And fast forward 2 years, and we're still there. That battle is still playing out. And so here we are. That kind of, I think it helps put in perspective where we are now with the appointment of the Interagency Working Group. And they're kind of putting, I think, in my opinion, appointing this working group to help them figure the way out of the briar patch. The working group was appointed it was announced on February 22nd. And it's going to review the entirety of the law and regulation governing the mining industry and make recommendations by November 22nd. If you Google the Interagency Working Group on Mining, you'll find a Federal Register notice with a whole slew of questions that the administration is posing. It's the result of a 100-day report that was produced in an executive order that the President Biden signed last year. It includes a whole basket of agencies that have either regulatory authority over the industry or consumption interests in the industry. And so, let's see, one more, there we go. You have a role to play, I think is an important thing to take away here. I'd encourage you to go look at these 12 questions, and there are going to be stakeholders throughout the industry. AEMA will be involved. National Mining Association will be involved. We need to have your voice participate in the roundtables and in the comment process. There's a deadline for comments by July 31st. And because, you know, I think it's still apparent that while there are some in the administration who understand the value, there are some who don't. And there are questions amongst these 12 asking how do we incentivize more responsible production, but we can't do it in the way we've always done it. And I think if they only really truly understood the environmental compliance that the industry sticks to today and has for the last 30, 40, 50 years, they would understand that we don't do it the way we have it, that we've always done it. It's not your grandfather's mining industry. It's not even your father's mining industry. They need to understand those kind of points and the kind of hoops that we have to jump through in order to permit a mine and operate a mine and keep it running. We'll be making the case at AEMA that we are already one of the most heavily regulated mining industries in the world, that we do it better here than anywhere else in the world. We have a comprehensive, transparent regulatory and environmental framework, and that's what we've done for decades. We're proud of our track record under that framework and the outreach we do to secure the social license to operate that we have in the communities where we operate. We think we've moved the needle a little bit in Washington, D.C., but we're trying to remain realistic. In some ways, I think even our biggest detractors in D.C. have conceded a little bit to our messaging. But just a little. In 2018, Chairman Raul Grijalva titled his bill to gut the 1872 mining law, the Hard Rock Leasing and Reclamation Act. Just a few weeks ago, he introduced his bill, the same bill, essentially, the Clean Energy Minerals Reform Act. So he's budging just a tiny bit. At least he changed the title. Admittedly, this is incremental progress, but beyond this committee, DC's talking about ways to reform permitting, to incentivize mineral production, to revive parts of our industry that have been dormant or missing for decades. Representatives and senators are working to familiarize themselves with the value of our industry and downstream parts of our industry, parts of the economy that need our industry, more so than they have been in years. They're interested. It's a good sign and it's a start, but there's a lot more to be done, and we will continue to do that. With that, I will wrap it up and open it up for any questions that any of you might have about what's going on in DC. It looks like we have a couple to start.
Just curious about the size of the membership.
Good question. Yeah, so at this point, we have about 1,300 members nationwide. We do have also members in 11 different countries, Canada, Australia. So we're spread not only across the country, but around the globe as well. So good, thank you. Good question. Yeah, in the back there.
He's got a couple of softball questions for you. Speak a little bit about the material industry. Secondly, Representative Paul's bill is going to talk about things like conversion of hydrogen systems, like that. Does AEMA have any resources to help educate folks in the field of all this matters?
Sure, appreciate it. So I don't know if you could hear the question. So question was, there's a hearing later this week. It is on that bill from Chairman Grijalva on the Clean Energy Minerals Reform Act. It's on Thursday. You can actually watch it if you go to the House Natural Resources Committee. It's at 10 Eastern. And basic premise of that bill would be to convert the system that we have right now from a claim system to a leasing system. It would implement a royalty of 12.5% on new mines, 8.5% on existing mines. It would institute what we call a dirt tax, a displaced materials fee of 7.5 cents, 7 cents, 7.5 cents, 7 cents a ton, I think it is. So every time you move a ton of dirt is 7 cents. So overburden, ton of overburden, 7 cents. Ton of ore, 7 cents. You remove it back to do reclamation activities, 7 cents a ton. So yeah, if you're talking about an operation that moves, I think he was just talking about 900 tons a day. Do the math. And then there's a whole bunch of other aspects to that bill. Those are just a few of them that would make it unpalatable. Those royalty rates are gross royalty rates, by the way, not net. So they wouldn't allow for any deductions for any of your anything in your operations. We do have a lot of resources on our website at miningamerica.org. And of course, we're on just about all the social platforms, social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. And so yeah, we have a lot of resources available there as well. A member of ours, Debbie Strusacker, is going to be a witness at that hearing as well. So got a couple. I think I saw your hand there. Yep.
I just wanted to say I was at the AEMA conference in Reno in December. It was a great conference. Loved attending it.
Thank you.
And then also, could you speak about Senator Heinrich's bill that also came out the same day? It's a little bit different. I was wondering if you could speak to it a little bit.
I will try. So Senator Heinrich also introduced a bill. It is a little bit different. It has a slightly lower royalty rate of, I think, 5% for an existing operation, 8% for new. Again, gross. Those are gross rates. And there are a couple of other features to that. There's like a small minor exemption in that, but the small minor exemption is very low. He has some features in there for that would make it much easier to designate what he's calling special places, which would essentially make it easier to designate national monuments, wilderness areas. A point that we often make is that more than 50% of the federal mineral estate, or the federal federal lands are already off limits to mineral entry and access. And Senator Heinrich's bill would actually make it even easier to take more land off out of access. And so while it is less bad than Chairman Grijalva's bill, it is, to use an analogy, maybe it's a little bit grotesque, but it's kind of the difference between being shot in the head or shot in the gut. And chances are you're probably going to die either way, but one, you'll probably die a little less quickly. So not advocating violence or anything like that, but it's kind of like, I'm just thinking of the old Western, that sort of thing. So do we have time for one more? Okay.
This lady here had a question.
Yes.
Yes. I wanted to know, what issues have you faced that could have halted the progression of the project that you guys are
Well, AEMA, we don't have, yeah, so what issues have we faced that would halt projects? We're an industry association, so we don't have projects. We work on behalf of our members. And so our members are these folks in the crowd, so we try to work on their behalf, advocating for issues in Washington, D.C., primarily at the federal level. So I don't know if I'm misunderstanding your question, or
No, that's fine.
okay. I'd be happy to chat more off. So, but yep. Okay. Well, yeah, and like for everyone else too, I'm happy to visit after the session and chat. So, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.